Hi, it's John Giss.
And I'm DeDe Brown.
And welcome to part one of a special throwback episode of Black on the Scene, a show about our love for all things Black entertainment.
We're going to take it back a bit earlier in the year to give some well-deserved flowers to all the amazing Black Oscar nominees, from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom to Soul and to Judas and the Black Messiah.
I can talk Oscars all day, every day, so this was an extremely fun conversation to have with you, DeDe.
Agreed, John. And if y'all haven't seen any of these films, we both strongly encourage you to take a moment to bask in the absolute beauty, the nuanced stories, and of course, the fantastic performances of all the nominated films.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
As we kick off our Oscar Black movie discussion.
Yes.
Let's just make this very clear.
Very clear.
You already told me I'm not allowed to talk about Nomadland.
There are rules to this. We are celebrating the vast nominees of Black creators and actors, filmmakers, and it's an amazing year of content. Like I'm so happy and excited. Like this is amazing. This is an amazing year. Like amazing year.
I mean, for it to be such a you-know-what show last year regarding movies not opening, I didn't open a single movie at my very new job at the studio that I work for. And one of the performances in which we are going to discuss is from one of the movies I would have been opening, and also celebrating the Oscar win of the actress, which we'll get to.
I'm like nodding my head. Okay.
Or we could just kick it off right now with it.
Yeah. So just, Best Actress.
Best Actress. We've got our queen, Viola Davis. Who already has how many?
She has one. Two. I'm sorry. She has
right,
two.
I was going to say she has two.
Two Best Supporting Actresses for Fences, and for, what was the other one she got? For
Doubt.
No, she didn't. No, she got nominated for Doubt. She didn't win. She got nominated for Doubt. She got nominated for The Help. She won for Fences. Does she just have? I think she might just have one then.
We need to find that out.
Yeah. I normally know my Oscar trivia, like
I know.
It's also very early in the morning, so my brain hasn't quite processed everything yet.
Caught up yet?
Yeah.
So we've got her for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Yes.
And as somebody who is from the South, as you are,
yes.
My family was really into the blues. I never was. And I wish I had paid more attention at those family reunions when they were listening to the blues and just telling stories. And I was too busy being young and, cool, or, whatever it was I was doing at those family reunions. But I really regret not paying more attention to the history, the oral history of our family and the blues, of course. But that Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I tell you what. First of all, let's give a shout out to August Wilson. Shout out to August Wilson, who is the one of our premier Black playwrights, embodying those Black stories. And I saw Fences on Broadway with Denzel and Viola, and it goes without saying, it was poetry in motion. There's something about Broadway. I'm a huge Broadway fan. I've seen Denzel in a few other things. I think that's the only thing I've ever seen Viola in on Broadway. And I don't go enough for somebody who has been in New York for 17, 18 years. But shout out to August Wilson and his amazing legacy. I've seen a few of his other plays. But Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I mean, just visually, because is it nominated for any?
It's nominated for a few things.
Production design, and they deserve it. Mark Ricker, set decoration, Karen O'Hara and Diana Stoughton. I don't know who these people are. I don't know if they're Black or not, but I will say props to them.
Props to them. Costume design, like it was just amazing. And I mean, and you know, shout out to August Wilson again, but also shout out to the director, the Black director, George C. Wolfe, who just, I mean, he did his thing on this movie. I absolutely loved this movie, and I was so like, this is one of those movies like I was just when I heard about it being produced and then it started to go into development and being shot, I was so happy for it, because I just love the words that August Wilson writes. Like, he writes such powerful, impactful, emotional words. Like, and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait, because I had never seen the play. Like, a lot of his works I had never seen until, you know, like I don't have the privilege of seeing it on Broadway. So when I saw Fences and I saw this, it's like his words just do something to my life, and I really loved it. And I mean, Viola and Chadwick Boseman, I mean, it's just the entire cast, honestly,
Glenn Thurman
came ready to work. Coleman Domingo, like it was just.
You know how I feel about Coleman.
We love our Coleman.
He is the most, I'm not even going to say underrated, but we've seen him over the years in various roles. And lately, he's getting more name recognition, thankfully. Yeah. But he is, I mean, you know, one of my favorite performances of his was If Beale Street Could Talk. He's just such an elegant man. He's amazing in everything he does. And I would love to see him in more, you know, leading roles, because I think he could easily carry a film, you know. But he's amazing. So our queen Viola.
Queen Viola. So I just looked. She's only won one Oscar, and it was for Fences, Best Supporting Actress.
Right, she got nominated.
She's been nominated 4 times. This is her 4th nomination.
I mean, I tell you what, she's just unparalleled in everything that she does. She literally is like acting poetry in motion. She's our Meryl, I would say.
Yes, she's 100%. I mean, yeah, you know, sometimes
not that we need
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, right. But she is that. You got Denzel, you got Viola Davis. You know what I mean? Those are just the
king and queen.
The king and queen. The masterclass of acting is within their work. From being comedic to being emotional to it all. And I think that woman is fantastic. And if she wins Best Actress, she would only be the 2nd Black woman to have won Best Actress in Oscar history. Obviously, my other queen, who I love, Halle Berry, won in 2001 for Monsters Ball. So, I mean, this would be huge, historic, all of the above if she won. Or if our other queen, who you have a special place in your heart with, wins, Miss Andra Day. So, I mean, listen, I'm rooting for everybody Black on this. So
everybody Black.
I want that to happen, because and I think both of them are legit front runners.
100%.
I think they both can do this and pull it out, which is amazing.
100%. And listen, I'm not going to be mad if either of them wins. If both of them lose, I will be in my feelings about that.
Yeah, 100%.
Even though I haven't watched all of the other actresses nominated, I have seen the one Carey Mulligan is in, it's escaping me right now. And I've seen Nomadland, and I love Frances McDormand. I think she's brilliant in everything that she does.
Yes.
She's a queen just in and of herself, and especially her Oscar speech a few years ago about that inclusion rider, which got everybody all together.
Was that not just last year? What was that? 2 years ago?
I don't think that was last year. I think it was a couple years ago.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I can't remember for what role, but I will say Andra in the United States versus Billie Holiday, first major acting role, the 30 to 40 pound weight loss, the smoking, the singing in a voice that's not hers, which I didn't understand. And just a little background is this is the movie.
Give us some intel, DeDe. Give us some intel.
Well, this is the movie that I worked on probably for like 6 months before it went to streaming. And when I say I worked on that, I worked on it with a team of people at the company that I work for, and
heading up the national publicity campaign for it.
Yes.
Let the people know, honey. Let the people know who you are, DeDe.
Let the people know.
SPP.
Oh, that is hilarious. I certainly feel like, and what people don't know, just in general, and it's again another topic we'll dive into. That movie marketing is such a collective effort. It's no one person can take credit, and movie making in general is a collaborative process, right? Super collaborative. Everybody plays a very integral role in getting that movie made, and certainly the actors and actresses that pour their heart and souls into roles. And Andra poured every bit of herself into this role. And for it to be her first out the gate, playing her icon, a woman I think that doesn't always get her due, and a lot of us don't know a lot about. So it's very ironic that she and Viola are up for these two iconic Black women who were trailblazers in their field, very similar fields, but very different sounds, right? I almost would love to see, like, if King August could write a play about, Ma Rainey and Billie Holiday meeting, and that, sort of like the and maybe they did at some point, because Ma Rainey definitely precedes Billie by a bit, but they were at some point, I believe, if I understand my timing right, contemporaries.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And blazing trails in very similar ways, right? Very similar ways. Affluent Black women at that time, during this time, flaunting their wealth in a way. Like, that was one of the things I learned about Billie Holiday through Lee Daniels and United States versus Billie Holiday, was that she was obviously super stylish and in a way, I guess, flamboyant and bold, and that wasn't something Black women were really allowed to be.
Yeah.
With her furs, she was also bisexual, and as we know, Ma Rainey was also.
I was going to say there was a lot of parallels between the two women that I found to be so fascinating, and I love when I learn something new or when I watch something, and I think back to just the millions of people who are going to now say, "Oh, I want to learn more about these women," and then start going down a tunnel of just taking in content and things like that. Because last time we saw Billie Holiday on screen, it's been a minute in terms of a depiction of her. It's Lady Sings the Blues. So
one of my all-time favorites.
And exactly, and that's such from a certain POV of her as well. You know what I mean? And this one is from definitely a very certain POV from her from like later in her life. And I just found that those angles for both of those women to be so fascinating. Again, because it opens up so much to learn more about them and their career. And those Viola, Andra, they played them. They embodied those women in such magical ways. Like that is acting. And Andra, for her first time, go girl.
Yes. And I will say about the movie as well, and I had the just immense pleasure of being able to have a few conversations with Lee Daniels about the movie. And Lee was like, this is for Black women. I want her to be celebrated. I want Black women to be celebrated. And we know he has a magical touch with Black female actresses, right? In all the roles that the movies that he's had a hand in.
Yeah.
I mean, Monique for Precious, Tara. And by the way, what's so interesting about his sort of magical touch, and I like to call him the queen maker in a way, is that several of the Black women that he's worked with already had really amazing careers. Taraji had an amazing career and was had been in the business for a long time before she landed the role in Empire. But that Lee Daniels project put her over the top.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not giving him the credit because she's been doing all the work.
Right.
Right. But he gave her the vehicle to shine. To shine and explore and just be seen in a totally different way. Same with Monique. We all have known Monique over the years as being the hilarious comic that she is. Again, he did not make her in any way, shape, or form, but he gave her the opportunity to be seen in a different way. A serious actress, and she got that Oscar. Not that that's the end all or be all. We shouldn't be measuring the success of, I think, our roles in movies by the Oscar standard, because certainly we have our own measure of that, the NAACP awards, the AFCO awards, we have our own way of recognizing our talent, and that's every bit and maybe even more relevant than the blessing of the Oscars, because we've been overlooked in so many different ways and categories. And I will say, who's the other one? So it was Taraji, Monique, Halle. Of course, Halle, but he was producing for Monsters on that Ball, so he helped get that vehicle together. And Gabrielle Sidibe and look at her. She is just, quite the acting world darling. And she just ushered in a whole different conversation about so many different things, who we're revering on screen, Black beauty, and she continues to push those conversations. Yeah. But back to Andrew for 1 second, and the United States versus Billie Holiday. Andrew was the only part of the movie that was nominated, but I will say the movie is rich in costume design. The costume design and makeup are otherworldly. Otherworldly. If you love fashion and vintage fashion the way I do, you could see it for that. And the music, I find myself listening to Billie Holiday now, in my downtime, and just being transported back to, it was a tough time, but it was also really a magical and very glamorous time in the world of
And I was just like, can we also just take a moment of praise for Mr. Trevante Rhodes, of just his presence in the movie. It's just great acting, as well as just great to look at as well. So, I mean, kudos to you, Lee Daniels, for knowing how to cast, because I think they had such great chemistry. And I was, no spoilers, but their characters had a relationship, and it was a very complicated relationship. That I found to be, that I didn't even know about. I found that to be, that aspect of the story to be extremely fascinating, of just that trajectory of beginning to end, to beginnings again, to ending again. Like, it was very complex. And that was a part of her life that I was very unfamiliar with, and loved that I learned a little bit more about that.
Very complex. And, her life was fraught with so many challenges, and that she was able, and I think that this is true for any Black person then and even now. Certainly we don't have it as hard as they did, but it was fraught with so many challenges, of which racism is an incredible part of that, especially in the Jim Crow South, where Ma Rainey was. And I don't even know if Jim Crow, I think that was the actual technical time of racism was just rampant.
Right.
And as it is now, that's a whole nother conversation. And so, again, I think that either one, if there was a way I could give them both an Oscar, I would.
Yeah.
And I really wish there was a way that this didn't have to be a competition, because even the other actresses that they're up against did their thing in their own vehicles, right? In their own movies. And I've often wondered, why do they have to be pitted against each other? Could we not just celebrate these 4 or 5 amazing performances? In a way, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but that's also another conversation, because it's like, well, then what about the other 4 or 5, 10, 15 performances that me and you probably could think of that we consider great too, that are not considered in this?
1000%.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
Jon, maybe that's what we'll do here at our Unnamed podcast.
Yeah.
Legit.
Yeah.
Legit. Because I've always sort of thought that, like, it's not always comparing, to me, apples to apples.
Yeah.
Literally apples to pineapples to oranges to pears. Like, it's not all. And I just, like, in the process of having I get it, and I get the sort of meaning behind it, but truthfully, if you're doing this kind of work on that level, you just deserve the recognition of putting yourself in those vulnerable spaces. And I know we're only talking Black, but like, I saw Carey Mulligan's movie.
Is it Promising Young Woman?
Yes, thank you. As we move on to the other Oscar nominations, that brings us to Best Picture of the Year. And speaking of kings.
Yes. Speaking of kings.
Pun intended.
Judas and the Black Messiah. I mean, so Ryan Coogler produced it. Charles King from Macro, Shaka King directed and produced it as well. I mean, hands down, one of my favorite movies of the year. Probably one of my favorites in the last 5 or 10 years. I mean, I've watched that movie maybe 5 times since it was released.
I did not know that.
And it's just, I don't know. I was, I'm a little bit of a closeted history buff, and I love learning about Black history in all of its form, and from the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I just thought Fred Hampton's story, and I was very familiar with it as well. So I didn't go into completely blind, but again, watching that film, and where I know people who were not familiar with his story, his life, how he died, unfortunately, how he was murdered. And in watching that, they were like, oh my God, like they were like taken aback by that. And I was like, that's again, opening up a door to learn more about the Black Panther Party and its importance in Black culture at that time, and his legacy. And I loved it for that aspect of it. And then, obviously Daniel and Lakeith, who both are nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I mean, they went there with the assignment and completed it with straight A's. Like, they both put in so much amazing work into their performances of really embodying those characters. And you literally feel empathy. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I want him to live. Oh my God, I don't want him to turn him. I'm like knowing what's going to happen, but I'm like, no, don't make that. No. It's such a fantastic story. And that's what it's about. Like, it's about kind of with Andra and United States versus Billie Holiday and Judas and the Black Messiah and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. It's like, these are all based on real people. Like, I think that's a narrative right there, right? And I think that's such a magical narrative to kind of just see such diverse depictions across history of the Black experience. And I think that's I don't know, that brings me so much joy inside.
Well, also the fact that we're telling these stories.
Yes.
You've got that Hollywood Reporter cover of Shaka, Charles, and Ryan. I was like, again, representation matters.
Yeah, seeing that matters.
seeing them, and they were beautifully shot by, I can't think of the name of the photographers, but Black photographers, seeing the thoughtfulness that went into that and how they were positioned, power stances, it was shot in, I believe that was black and white, was also really, really profound. And I think that maybe that's why these stories are so enriching and so good, right?
Yeah.
We're able to tell our own stories in our own way. And if you haven't read the Hollywood Reporter article, it's super interesting to talk about them trying to make this movie, as always, right? I do think that being able to have a window into that gives you a greater appreciation. And I hope that that story travels, and their stories, because I've heard them talk about it in other places. And certainly I wish we had more outlets and opportunities for our stories to come out. We have very few Black owned outlets, but I'm glad the story's out there. So the movie and its storytelling and how it transported you back to that time. And let's just talk about, what is her name? Dominique Fishback? That, yeah. And I also love that, like, everybody in the movie, I've seen a lot of those actors before, but I couldn't have necessarily called them by name. So I love the fact that these are new, fresh faces also being a part of this very important ensemble cast. So my money's on like Judas and the Black Messiah. I can't wait for it to take home the best motion picture of the year.
Yes.
And it's a little bit on the sad side that Daniel and Lakeith are up against each other for best supporting actor. Lakeith is a brilliant, brilliant actor. He really knows how to get just in there to the, and his star is of course rising in Hollywood. I've had the opportunity to work with him on a couple of movies, so I hope he keeps shining. And I gotta tell you, that Daniel Kaluuya, holy smokes, he is literally otherworldly. And it feels like everything that he does, I'm still laughing at his SNL appearance, his comedic timing. And you've had the pleasure of working with him on
Queen and Slim.
On Queen and Slim.
Yeah,
and
a little bit on Get Out.
And a little bit with him on Get Out. And I mean, spill some tea. Talk about him a little bit.
Daniel is great. I mean, he's fantastic. And we both went to the BET Hip Hop Awards together, and Daniel, which were in Atlanta, and luckily Daniel was actually shooting Judas at the same time, and was like, I would love to go to Atlanta to the Hip Hop Awards and present. And come to find out, he's a big hip hop fan, and we were there the entire 4 or 5 hours of the show, and he's sitting there enjoying it. And he's just a great energy. He's fantastic. He's a hard worker, and he is just a nice human being and appreciative of everything. So I love when I see that he is continuing to shine. I am completely rooting for him. He has been the front runner this award season for Best Supporting Actor and taking everything home. So I am extremely happy for him, and looking forward to working with him again on some more projects, hopefully. So I can't wait to see this. Hopefully they sweep, because they've been, I think Judas Black Messiah was nominated, I think 6 or 7 categories, or 6 and 7 times. And I think that's amazing. Like, I'm really shooting for them to take, if not all, most of those nominations, because
take them all.
Take them all. Especially screenplay, best picture, actor, cinematography. I mean,
achievement in music.
Song. Yes, all of the above.
Song.
Yes, that song is amazing.
First of all, okay, so I'm not like big into music. I probably haven't bought an album, sad to say, since the early 2000s.
No one has.
But right, because you can stream it. But
Right.
I have to give a shout out to her for the Fight for You. It was that it just transported me, which is what all of this content is meant to do. And it was literally like, I'm just going to go ahead and give them the clapping up, you know, for, if I had some flowers to throw out for them, I would. And certainly for all of our sisters and brothers up for
and I want to say too, so just to remind you, so we have it on record, we have to, when they do win, we have to send Charles and his lovely wife, who we love, Stacey King, some flowers, some champs, something of a.
Speaking of queens.
Yes.
Stacey Walker King.
We love our Stacey.
Goodness.
Well, those listening, Stacey is Charles's amazing wife, mother to their two wonderful kids, and she's my versus battle buddy. And I go to her house and we watch versus together, and always have a great time. So she is near and dear to our hearts. And
literally one of the funniest people I've
ever. One of the funniest, but hardest working, just go-getter that there is. And I mean, I remember when you first met her, we were at Howard University, and we had dinner, or had cocktails or something. And then it just like, we got work aside, and we just started talking about life and love and everything else in between for like 3-4 hours. It just was
3-4 hours and several cocktails.
It was so great. So we love you, Charles. We love you, Stacey. Congrats.
We love you, King family.
King family. We gotta talk about another queen, my girl. First of all, One Night in Miami, Regina King, who is very near and dear to both our hearts, because we grew up on her.
Which is not fair, because I'm older than her. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Brenda is killing it.
Brenda is killing it. I mean, and you know,
and she looks good doing it.
Amazing.
Amazing.
And she, you know, I've actually met her a few times.
Oh God.
And she just is the warmest,
so
thoughtful, appreciative woman. One of the nicest women I've ever met. Like, it's just, she just has this energy about her. And I'm just like,
it's great.
Give her all the flowers now. Like, she is
all the flowers.
Just think about it, DeDe. Like, who else has been working as hard since she was 8, 10, however old she was, had the career she's had in terms of being an actress, being a writer, TV film, directing TV, now directing her first feature.
Action hero in The Watchmen at 47, 48.
Yes. I mean, it's unheard of. And it's like, that's the career people want, like that. Like directing episodes of Insecure. You know what I mean? Like, she's just doing it all. And I am here for it all as well.
Here for it all.
That's already won an Oscar for If Beale Street Could Talk. And, you know, which I love that. You know, I love her character, love that film. Barry Jenkins, kudos to you. It's just magical. And I love it. Magical. I love it all.
She's magical. She's otherworldly. And this movie, watching this movie, 4 Black men, iconic Black men, powerful, with very sort of diverging points of view. So Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, and Jim Brown.
Yeah.
And when you think about their respective bodies of work and what they meant to us and what they meant to the advancement of Black people and how they advanced us in their own ways, them coming together in this movie based on something that actually happened, and then kind of elaborating on what those conversations would have been like. And I gotta tell you, the casting And this...
It was magical. It was, I mean...
I have goosebumps right now thinking about how this was cast. And I wish I had looked up who did the casting. It was probably, oh my God. I'm gonna have to start doing note cards because I want to be able to shout out these people, because again, it's a very collaborative process.
Right, it is.
And they, oh my gosh, the casting was just amazing. 4 powerful Black men having these really important and challenging conversations, especially at that time. And so we've got, for Best Supporting Actor, Leslie Odom Jr.
Yes. Who, I mean, I love him, first of all. So when he's such a bright, shining star that I'm just like, I can't wait for that to just continue to grow and grow. But he did so well with Sam Cooke. Like, it was like eerie how much he embodied him. Like, I'm like, you sound like him, you look like him. Like, it just was like, what's going on here? Like, it was so good. So another 3 Black men are nominated Best Supporting Actor.
That's why I want them all. They all deserve.
That is a tough category.
It's a tough category, and they all did their thing. I'm not kidding. Leslie Odom Jr., again, not an overnight success by any stretch of the imagination, but if you haven't seen any interviews on him, there's one in particular that was CBS Sunday Morning that was really amazing. And if you haven't seen the Sam Cooke documentary on Netflix, it is worth seeing, because Sam Cooke was a boss. He was all about owning his own masters and all the economic empowerment that Jay-Z, DeDe, everyone's doing, Master P, are doing on the music side now. Sam was doing that then against all the horrible odds. And and of course his death was very tragic and mysterious. And Leslie singing Speak Now, I listened to it over and over again after the movie, and I was just like, just bawling. And I don't know who Sam Ashworth is, but kudos to you, Sam Ashworth, for your music and lyrics with Leslie, because it was, I'm emotional thinking about it. It was just such a beautiful song, and literally just summed up the movie in the best possible way. And shout out to Aldous Hodge, who is also, I've had the opportunity to just work with in a small way on your movie.
Invisible Man in Atlanta.
Yes. No, it was actually Invisible Man in New York for the screening that we did.
Oh yeah, you're right. In Atlanta. Yeah, you're right, in New York.
Yeah, at the Crosby.
You can make it. Yes, totally.
He was so lovely, gracious.
Yes.
Humble, hardworking, like all the things you would imagine. He's a super, super talented guy. And of course, who are we forgetting? Aldous. Oh, the young brother that played Muhammad Ali.
Eli Gorey.
Eli Gorey. Wow, this kid's talented.
He did really good. He did fantastic.
He was wonderful. And I've seen him in a bunch of other stuff, and I was like, wow, this kid's super talented. I think he's Canadian. I was like, this kid's super talented. He's amazing, handsome, like the whole 9. I can't wait to see what he does next. And then our British brother.
The casting was so fantastic. Like it was
amazing.
So good. And
directing.
And then Kingsley Ben-Adir, who played Malcolm X, was like, again, just embodied that character, like, and so well. Mannerisms, tone, dialect, like it was so spot on.
Spot on.
It was fantastic.
He's a very talented brother too, obviously.
Yeah.
And I loved him in High Fidelity. If you haven't seen that, I'm a big High Fidelity fan, and wish Hulu had brought it back.
Yes.
Yeah, I really am. And I thought that he was wonderful in that, and everything I've really seen him in. He's had smaller roles, and I hope we can see bigger.
I think this definitely is going to propel all 4 men to like that leading man status of the next roles. I really feel that way. Like, I'm really, really excited for that. And we also have to shout out the man who wrote the words of this amazing film, Kemp Powers. And
Kemp Powers,
Kemp
shout out.
I mean, and you know, for those who don't know, this was a play. One Night in Miami is based on a play back in, I think, 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And he adapted these words into screen, and now is nominated for an Oscar, which is fantastic. So shout out to Kemp Powers, shout out to Regina, shout out to the unnamed casting director that we don't know, because you did a great job. Shout out to the 4 men, entire supporting cast, everyone. One Night in Miami.
Costume too. You know I'm all about the costumes.
Them suits, you know me.
I know you love a slim suit.
I was ready for them suits, and that tailoring was, oh my God, it was so great.
Slim tie, the styling, beautiful, beautiful. Which brings us to, we've got a few more to acknowledge, and I would kick that off with animated, with Soul. And I know you really love Soul.
I did. I loved it. I really, really appreciated it. Again, it's like thinking back to what I grew up on. What did I see? What Disney film did I see myself in? There isn't anything. So I just think back to like my god kids, and like when they watch Soul, and they can have an appreciation for seeing themselves in some way. They can have appreciation for jazz music. They can have, they can have appreciation with also learning a life lesson. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. I thought Jamie was great. Like it's just a good, cute, feel good, emotional in the right way film to me. And I'm not surprised that it's nominated for Best Animated Feature of the Year from the Oscars, because it was beautiful.
It's also achievement in music for Trent Reznor, who we all know, Atticus Ross, and John Batiste.
Yes.
And if anyone doesn't know, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, they are killing it in the soundtrack movie business right now.
Yes.
They really, really are. You're exactly right about the lessons, because Soul really gave me a lot to think about.
Yeah, exactly.
And I find myself always as someone who's like always trying to get someplace.
Mm-hmm.
If this happens in my life, everything's going to change, and I will have arrived. It's going to be magical. And I know that I have, and I'm trying to get much better about that, is appreciating the place that you're in while you're there, because that's your life, right? You can't be living for one day.
Yes, correct.
And it was just like that lesson really resonated with me. So this movie was almost, as a lot of animated movies are, really about the adults who watch it too, right? You have to bridge that super important gap of making it entertaining for kids, but also the parents that watch with the kids. And much in the same way that, like, the Toy Stories of the world do, which that's one of my favorite animated movies, and sort of all times. And if you think it was bad for you growing up, and I'm older than you, there was nothing. I got to watch Snow White.
Yeah.
Which is just wrong in multiple levels. And Cinderella.
You said it's wrong on multiple.
We won't even get into the Me Too of it all. We won't get into.
But there's a lot of problems in a lot of these films. I mean, we won't have to go into those details.
100%. Everything, all the animated stuff I grew up on was racked with racism, sexism, you name it, and we didn't know any better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's yes. That's a whole nother conversation.
It is.
It is a completely whole nother conversation. But I want to talk about one thing too before we wrap up, because I am probably the biggest Spike Lee stan in the world. Like I love him.
True that.
Every time I have an opportunity to praise the type of representation I've seen from his films and how I've been able to relate and see myself in his films, I will grant that. So Universe, if you ever have an opportunity for me to meet him in person, I would love that. But The Five Bloods, a film that I loved. Because my father was in Vietnam. My father went to Vietnam, and I grew up knowing my father's army buddies as my uncles. And like I just saw they were his buddies, and I literally grew up with them, seeing them so much, having the reunions and everything else. So I really, really resonated with this story in a way, especially the Delroy Lindo and the John DeMage's character as father and son. And I find that this film was snubbed in so many ways from award season in general. There's not enough conversation around it. I thought Delroy, who is an amazing actor, who is a frequent Spike Lee collaborator, should have been nominated. John DeMage's is the next big thing. If you haven't seen him in Lovecraft Country, take a moment. If you have not seen him in The Five Bloods, take a moment. This man is working his butt off. And just these other veterans, Clark Peters and Norm Lewis and Isaiah Whitlock Jr., like, they are just people you've probably seen before. Oh my God, I've seen him. But they're such actors. Like, they're so great at what they do. They're not celebrities, they're not salacious. They are just someone who knows the assignment and they're there to complete it. And they do the work, and I loved it. And also one of Chadwick Boseman's last films, at Storm and Norman, there were just so much raw emotion in that movie that it got nominated, I think, just for a achievement in music. But I think it should have gotten nominated for so much more. I just think cinematography, I think writing, I think acting, I think it's Best Picture worthy. And I think that's a really missed opportunity, especially, Spike won a few years ago with Black Klansman, which is another one of my good films that I love. And I just feel like this was a missed opportunity to really give some props and credit to this film. I think it's completely underrated.
I know, and you loved it out the gate. And I just remember, I was like, wow, there's 4 older Black men together with this strong bond and relationship, and they love each other, and they're there for each other, and they've been through some things. And I always think that when I just see older Black men gathered, period, right? Of course, it will bring you to thinking about your father, your aunts, your uncles, and I always kind of smile and silently give them the reverence for what they've been through, what they've seen. They're still living, what they had to endure. And certainly this film gives a really great example of that. And of course, Chad's appearances in the movie, you appreciate them then, but of course we appreciate them so much more now. And we didn't obviously acknowledge his Best Actor nomination for Ma Rainey. He just, and I think it distinctly because he is from the South, he was able to really embody his character and embody is the word for the podcast. We're going to link a definition in the show notes. Embody.
Right.
He was really able to get into that character in a way that, again, Black men from the South can do, I think, because they've lived those experiences. And I'm sure he's going to win. He's, I think, taken home all of the awards that he's won all of the awards that I think he was nominated for, and his beautiful wife has been accepting on his behalf. So shout out to her for having the courage to do that. I'm sure it's like pulling off just being, she's always, I'm sure, thinking about him and sad, but certainly that she can muster up the enormous amount of courage and grace to accept on his behalf in a way. And she just, we don't know what she's feeling, but we can only imagine, because we feel sad too that he's not here, right? Well, Jon, you were right. It is a great Oscar season for Black creators. We'd like to see more. We also have to, again, just say, being able to see us, whether they got nominated or not. Oh, and we forgot the documentaries that are also nominated as well.
Yes, a love song for Latasha, best live action film, short film, and Two Distant Strangers. I mean, it's a phenomenal year for recognizing Black content. And, you know, again, you and I are always here for that. And I mean, I remember a time watching the Oscars, probably 4 years ago.
The Oscars So White time?
Oscars So White, exactly. And many times before where there were not us there or nominated, you know what I mean? Or we got one nomination a year and we had to be happy with that, you know what I mean? So gone are those days, luckily. And like the idea where the 4 acting categories potentially could be won by 4 people of color is...
Not just people of color, Black people.
Well, not only for best supporting actress. There's no Black.
Oh, right.
But yes, so I find that to be so fulfilling. It fulfills my heart and it gives me so much joy and hope that the industry is changing for the better, in my opinion. And obviously, there's been a really great. The doors open in terms of bringing in more diverse members of the Academy as well over the last few years. And knock on wood, hopefully you'll be in one of those soon too. And you can, and myself as well, because I have goals of doing that. But I think that's where it starts at. You have to be able to have the conversations and have a diverse body of members to really find fulfillment in Judas and the Black Messiah. Find the message of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. See the beauty in the Five Bloods. So you have to be able to connect with those pieces of art. Yes, as a filmmaker, but also, or as a film lover, but also just as a lover, as a person of color, as a person who can just relate to the stories, relate to the narrative. So I'm extremely excited to watch the Oscars. Hopefully they're not going to be 4 hours this year. And we can root for everyone Black that we went over. But I encourage everyone to just take a moment and watch these films, be touched by these films, connect with these films, and your life will likely change from that.
100%. Let's raise a glass.
Well, I think I drunk all mine, but yes.
Oh my goodness, Jon. Well, Jon is raising an empty glass a little bit. We'll raise a glass to these wonderful Black actors, directors, writers, costume designers, musicians. I said writers.
Cinematography, everything.
Cinematography. Yes. We're raising a glass to you. We salute you. We see you. We thank you. Keep making magic. Keep shining a beautiful, warm, bright light on us. We have so many more stories to tell. And a lot of those stories, which I think we're both hoping for, won't just be about, our pain and in relation to racism or struggle, even though those stories are very important to tell. We have and Jon and I have a few ideas of a few stories we want to tell. So cheers to you. We thank you. We salute you. We see you.
Congrats.
Thanks for joining us for episode 4 of Black on the Scene, our love letter to Black entertainment.
It was so fun to talk nominees and speculate on the winners. But of course, by now we all know who won, but you haven't heard our recap and reactions, but you can in the next episode. We're going to get into the winners, the snubs, the surprises, and everything else in between.
DeDe, it was such a beautiful night. I loved it so much.
Jon, you know how I felt about those amazing speeches. And I loved the fashions.
Yes, and yes. So you guys, you definitely don't want to miss out on the next episode of Black on the Scene.